HOA called cops when I parked my boat 30 minutes later. I own the whole marina. Jack's hands gripped the wheel of his old fishing boat, the Salty Dawn, as he guided it into the marina's smallest slip. The sun dipped low, painting the lake in hues of fire and shadow. This marina, nestled in the wealthy enclave of Lakeview Estates, was the only place he could afford to dock. For years, he'd scraped by, hauling fish to local markets, his weathered face a map of a life spent battling the elements. The Homeowners Association, with their ironclad rules and manicured lawns, had always looked down on him. To them, Jack was a blemish on their pristine waterfront, a working-class intruder in their world of yachts and champagne. That evening, as Jack tied the ropes, Karen, the HOA president, appeared like a storm cloud. Her sharp heels clicked on the dock, her lips pursed in disdain. "You can't park that rust bucket here," she snapped, gesturing at the Salty Dawn. "This marina is for residents only. I'm calling the police." Jack's jaw tightened. He'd paid his docking fees, followed every rule. But Karen's vendetta was personal. She thrived on control, and Jack's quiet defiance was a thorn in her side. "Karen, I've got every right to be here," Jack said, his voice low but steady. "Check the records." She scoffed, already dialing. "You don't belong here, Jack. Never have." The words stung, but he held his ground, his calloused hands steady on the ropes. The marina was his lifeline. Without it, his livelihood was gone. Minutes later, a police cruiser rolled up, its lights cutting through the dusk. Officer Daniels, a young man with a weary expression, stepped out. "What's the issue, ma'am?" he asked. Karen launched into a tirade, accusing Jack of trespassing, her voice dripping with entitlement. Jack stood silently, his heart pounding. He knew how this worked. Money talked, and he had none. But as Daniels checked Jack's permit, a shadow moved in the distance. An elderly man, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, stepped off a gleaming yacht, his cane tapping softly on the dock. No one noticed him at first, but his presence felt like a shift in the tide. Daniels frowned at his tablet. "Mr. Thompson, your permit's valid. No violation here." Karen's face twisted in disbelief. "That's impossible. He's not one of us," she sputtered. The officer shrugged, clearly uncomfortable with her outburst. "Ma'am, he's within his rights. You need to back off." Karen's eyes narrowed, but before she could retort, the elderly man spoke, his voice calm yet commanding. "Officer, may I have a word?" The man introduced himself as Mr. Hargrove, a name that made Karen's smug expression falter. Hargrove was a legend in Lakeview, a reclusive billionaire who owned half the town, including, unbeknownst to most, the marina itself. "I've been watching this little drama unfold," Hargrove said, his piercing eyes locking onto Karen. "And I'm tired of it." Jack's heart sank. He assumed Hargrove was about to side with the HOA, another rich man protecting his own. But Hargrove's next words stunned everyone. "This marina's been mismanaged for years," he said, his gaze sweeping over the docks. "The HOA's rules are strangling it. I've decided to sell." A gasp rippled through the small crowd that had gathered. Karen's face paled. "Sell? To whom?" she demanded. Hargrove's lips curled into a faint smile. "To him," he said, pointing at Jack. The world seemed to tilt. Jack blinked, certain he'd misheard. "Me?" he croaked. Hargrove nodded. "I've seen you here, day after day, working hard, respecting this place. You're what this marina needs, not her." He gestured dismissively at Karen. "I'll have my lawyers draw up the papers. The marina's yours, effective immediately." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came. The crowd murmured, a mix of shock and amusement. Officer Daniels hid a smirk. The twist came like a rogue wave. Hargrove wasn't just a bystander who'd been watching Jack for months, quietly admiring his grit. Years ago, Hargrove had been a fisherman himself, clawing his way up from nothing. Jack reminded him of his younger self, and Karen's petty tyranny was the final straw. "I'm done with entitled gatekeepers," Hargrove said, his voice cold. "This place deserves better." Karen stormed off, her heels echoing like gunfire. Jack stood frozen, the weight of the moment crashing over him. He owned the Marina? The Salty Dawn was no longer an outcast but the heart of this place. Yet, as the crowd dispersed and Hargrove vanished back to his yacht, a bitter truth settled in. The Marina came with debts decades of mismanagement Karen had swept under the rug. Leaky docks, unpaid taxes, and a looming lawsuit from a yacht owner whose vessel had been damaged under HOA neglect. Jack's victory was a poisoned chalice. He spent the next weeks drowning in paperwork, his dream of a simple life on the water buried under legal battles. The community, once united against Karen, turned on him. They blamed Jack for the Marina's troubles, whispering that he'd conned Hargrove. The same neighbors who cheered his triumph now shunned him, their loyalty as fleeting as the lake's morning mist. Jack's heart ached not for the Marina, but for the trust he'd lost. He'd fought for his place here, only to find it hollow. One night, standing on the dock, Jack stared at the Salty Dawn. He could sell the Marina, pay off the debts, and walk away. But that would mean letting Karen win, letting her kind dictate who belonged. Instead, he made a choice. He'd fight not for ownership, but for the soul of this place. He'd rebuild, dock by dock, earning back the community's trust. It would take years, maybe a lifetime, but Jack was no stranger to hard work. The Marina was his now, but it came at a cost. The victory was bittersweet, a reminder that justice often leaves scars. As the stars reflected on the water, Jack wondered if he'd ever truly belong. What would you do if you were Jack? Fight for a community that turned on you, or walk away from a tainted victory?